Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to embark on a totally mind-bending exploration of what is, without a doubt, the most dominant superorganism on Earth. I mean, think about it. We walk past them, we step over them, we usually just completely ignore them. But right beneath our feet lies this hidden empire that literally mastered agriculture, engineering, and even warfare millions of years before humans even existed. I am incredibly excited to share this with you because I promise, once you see how these creatures actually operate, you are never going to look at the ground the same way again. Okay, let's dive into this. 20 quadrillion. Yeah, you heard me right. That's a 20 followed by 15 zeros. According to recent scientific consensus, that is the estimated number of ants alive on Earth at this very moment. To put that completely massive number into perspective, for every single human being alive today, there are roughly 2.5 million ants. They've conquered virtually every landmass on the planet, avoiding only extreme volcanic regions and the freezing poles. It completely redefines our sense of scale, doesn't it? And well, it's not just about the numbers, it's about sheer physical presence. If you were to somehow gather every single ant on Earth and put them all on a scale, their dry carbon biomass totals around 12 megatons. That means if you weighed every ant on Earth, they would outweigh all wild birds and all wild mammals combined. Just let that sink in for a second. The tiny insects we can just flick away with a finger collectively represent a planetary force heavier than the globe's entire wild mammal and bird populations. We really need to shift our perspective from the micro to the macro to truly understand them. So, how exactly do 20 quadrillion individuals avoid total chaos? Well, that brings us to Section 1, Anatomy of a Superorganism. Now, what's really interesting here is that an ant colony functions like a single, highly coordinated body, and this superorganism is actually built on a genetic level through something called haplodiploidy. In this system, females have 2 sets of chromosomes, but males only have 1. Why? Because they develop from unfertilized eggs. That means a male ant has a mother, but absolutely no father. And because of this, their family tree grows following the Fibonacci sequence. A male drone essentially exists as a vessel of exact genetic copies. They're actually often referred to as flying sperm, and their sole incredibly brief purpose in life is just to mate with the queen and pass on those exact genes. This genetic structure creates a severe, irreversible biological division of labor. First, you have the queen, the reproductive engine of the colony, who can live for an astonishing 30 years in some species. Then you've got the workers. These are all sterile females who handle everything else, like foraging, nest building, and defense. They live for about a year. And finally, the drones, the males, well, they live for barely a week. This extreme specialization, where individuals literally sacrifice their own reproductive ability and autonomy, is exactly what allows the colony to survive, act, and think as one unified body. But to act as one body, you've got to have a nervous system. Ants communicate through this incredibly sophisticated network of chemical and physical signals. First, they lay invisible pheromone trails for others to follow. Next, using their highly sensitive antennae, which are equipped with 170 advanced odor receptors, they actually read these chemical maps. Finally, when ants meet, they engage in tactile tapping of their antennae. They're literally feeling out the other ant to confirm their identity and their current task. Through these thousands of micro-interactions, the colony creates a collective memory. 1,000 tiny brains working together can actually calculate the absolute shortest route to food, effectively solving the famous mathematical traveling salesman problem just by walking. Which leads us to some of their most human-like achievements in Section 2, the world's first farmers. We normally think of agriculture as a uniquely human achievement, right? But ants actually invented it millions of years before Homo sapiens even walked the earth. Ants evolved from wasp-like ancestors about 140 million years ago. But the real turning point? That happened 66 million years ago. Yes, the exact same asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs basically forced ants to adapt to this dark, decaying world. Driven underground, certain ant species began cultivating fungus on decaying organic matter just to survive. Today, this has evolved into such an advanced system that the ants and the fungus cannot survive without each other. The ants literally lost the ability to produce certain vital amino acids and now rely entirely on their carefully cultivated fungal crops. And this brilliantly illustrates their agricultural genius. They don't just grow crops, they literally keep livestock. Certain ants act as tiny cowboys for small insects called aphids. Step 1, they herd the aphids to the juiciest parts of a plant. Step 2, they fiercely protect their herd from predators. Step 3, the ants gently stroke the aphids with their antennae to actually milk them for this sugary secretion called honeydew. And finally, when a colony moves, they will literally carry the aphid eggs with them to establish a new pasture. It is just a stunning display of complex farming behavior. But like any massive empire, things can get a little dark. Here's Section 3, Warfare, Rebellion, and Medicine. As brilliant as their society is, it is equally brutal, especially when it comes to territory. We often think of an ant colony as just a single anthill in the yard, but the Argentine ant has created a cooperative network, a super colony, that spans an unbelievable 6,000 kilometers along the Mediterranean coast, all the way from Italy to Spain. It contains billions of workers across millions of cooperating nests. It is basically a unified, sprawling nation-state right beneath human borders, fiercely defending its immense territory from rival ant species. To conquer and survive at this massive scale, ants have evolved these literally superhero-like anatomical extremes. For example, a common field ant possesses a neck joint that can withstand pressure up to 5,000 times its own body weight. Try to imagine a human lifting a commercial airplane with their teeth. Then there is the trap giant. When threatened or hunting, it can slam its mandibles shut at an astonishing 137 kilometers per hour. That is one of the fastest biological movements on the entire planet, delivering a knockout punch to predators or prey in the blink of an eye. So the crucial point is, this is where things get truly eerie. These complex social behaviors actually mirror some of the darkest parts of human history. For instance, there are Dracula ants, which literally chew through the skin of their own larvae to drink their hemolymph, basically ant blood, for nutrients. There are slave-making ants that raid rival colonies, kidnap the young, and brainwash them into foraging and working for their captors. But, nature fights back. Scientists have recorded systematic slave rebellions, where the enslaved worker ants suddenly rise up and systematically execute the offspring of their captors just to break the cycle. Yet, right alongside all that brutality, there is this profound medical genius. Because they live in such incredibly dense populations, disease could easily wipe out an entire colony. But ants have developed self-diagnosis and self-medication. When the species Formica fusca is infected by a deadly fungus, the infected ants will actively seek out and consume precise doses of reactive oxygen species, which is essentially hydrogen peroxide. They purposefully consume what is normally a deadly poison to them, utilizing it as a medicine that actually reduces their mortality rate by 20%. It is a total marvel of insect healthcare. So, why does any of this matter? Let's get into Section 4, Why Earth Needs Ants. You might be wondering, okay, what does this massive, warring, farming superorganism have to do with me? Let's move on and see how this builds our entire terrestrial ecosystem. We often give earthworms all the credit for healthy soil, but ants are the true invisible engineers of our planet. Globally, ants actually move more soil each year than earthworms do. Because they can survive in much harsher, hotter, and drier extremes than worms, they are absolutely critical for arid environments. Studies in Australia have shown that the activity of ants and termites aerating the soil and cycling nutrients can actually boost agricultural crop yields by an incredible 36%. They are quite literally keeping the planet's soil alive. As Deborah M. Gordon, a biology professor at Stanford, really beautifully puts it, ants show us how local interactions generate collective responses to changing situations. And that is the core takeaway of our explainer today. Ants don't rely on some central commander barking orders. Through decentralized intelligence, simple chemical rules, and profound collective sacrifice, they adapt, overcome, and reshape the Earth. They are an unstoppable ecological force that engineers, robotics experts, and environmental scientists are actively studying right now to figure out how to build better systems for humanity. So, I want to leave you with this thought. The next time you're walking down the street and you spot just a single, solitary ant scurrying across the sidewalk, don't just see a bug. Ask yourself, what is the rest of the superorganism planning? Because that tiny creature is just one mobile cell of an ancient, incredibly brilliant empire right beneath your feet. Thank you so much for exploring this hidden world with me today. Keep your eyes on the ground and keep wondering.